Alright guys, what's up? It's Jack and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about something that you guys have been kind of saying in the comment section, and there's certainly more than one of you that are saying the same thing. So I wanted to take this discussion and topic and expand it and involve the rest of you. So without further ado, what exactly are we going to be talking about today? Well, we're going to be talking about XDefiant's launch content because it seems that a good percentage of the community, or a percentage of the community, believes that the game needs to launch with a pretty good amount of content, or else it's just not gonna last, so to speak. All right, so that's what we're gonna get right into it. And the best way to do that is to go right from the start from what the developers had initially said. We're gonna talk about the changes that have happened between then and everything else that may happen, but we're gonna talk about the very beginning and also post-launch content. So first I'm gonna put up this screenshot here about the preseason, which is basically the same thing that we're gonna get at launch. So we're basically looking at 14 maps, 10 arena, 10 progression, 5 factions in total, 5 game modes, and overall 24 weapons. And obviously there's going to be more stuff post-launch, but here is where the things get interesting. Now this is obviously confirmed, like the very least that we're going to get is this. But as we know, the game was actually slated to launch months ago, but it just never happened. There have been a couple of delays due to some aspects of the game that really needed to be patched up, and it was very important, and that's pretty much all but done at this point. There's, like Mark Rubin said in his recent tweet or something like that, that there's like literally one more bug that they have to get rid of, and then after that, sometime after holiday, probably right after holiday, they're going to do submissions in order for them to basically pass those submissions so that way they can launch the game finally. So now when you're looking at the 14 maps, for instance, I want to break this down real quick before we go on to post-launch content. When you're looking at the 14 maps, you know, that sounds pretty good. 24 weapons is okay, I guess. 5 modes seems on the not very much, and then 5 factions is whatever. You know, when you compare it to like some Call of Duty games, like when you look at the specialists in Black Ops 4, the amount of them that we got compared to what we're getting here, it seems a little here seems quite less. 5 modes compared to Call of Duty's like numerous amount of modes. 24 weapons, well, Call of Duty usually will launch with a weapon count that's anywhere between 30 and 40. And then 14 maps is pretty much spot on. Black Ops 2 launched with 14 maps. But here is the interesting thing. Now, obviously, we are very ecstatic about XDefiant around here. There's no doubt about it. However, when concerns do end up happening when you look between the lines, XDefiant should not be immune to that because we gotta tell it like it is, right? That's what we do around here. So the thing is with the maps, for those of you guys that don't know, you're not going to be able to play with on every single map and with every single game mode. That's not how XDefiant works. So certain game modes are made for certain maps, and this applies to pubs as well. This is not just for league play, but this is for casual play as well. So like, let's say you're playing Hot Shot, you're only going to be limited to like 3 or 4 maps on Hot Shot because of the size of the maps and how the map layout works in order to appease that game mode so that way it flows properly and everything else. So you're not going to be able to play with all 14 maps unless you play every single game mode, but I personally believe that the majority of people will not play every single game mode, unless I could be wrong. Maybe you guys can let me know down in the comment section about that. But for the most part, people will play like maybe 2 to 3 game modes, and that's pretty much it. And we know the most popular game mode is Team Deathmatch, and it may be very well possible that Hot Shot might be the most popular game mode, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, Team Deathmatch needs to be in this game, and we're not talking post-launch, we're talking at launch. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not, and we'll get into that in a minute. So, and again, going back to modes, 5 modes, again, compared to what you get in a lot of other games, not much. But at the same time, remember, it's not always about the quantity, it's not about the numbers, but it is about the quality, right? And the same thing goes for weapons. Like usually in Call of Duty, there's only like a handful of weapons that most people use, especially nowadays with skill-based matchmaking running rampant, right? So using anything less just doesn't make sense, you know, unless you're reverse boosting, and you know, that's a whole other topic, but you guys get the point, right? So, but what if XDefiant actually made a multitude of weapons valuable? And on top of that, since there's not going to be skill-based matchmaking in pubs, that's going to make those 24 weapons seem like a lot more, right? Because in Call of Duty, again, we're going to make comparisons to Call of Duty because everybody's naturally doing that, and for reasons that we can all understand, I'm pretty sure. With Call of Duty, despite the fact that, you know, unless you're reverse boosting or unless you're cheating or something like that, you're not going to use every single weapon. You're going to use the meta, or you're going to use some of the best weapons. Unless you just really don't give a damn and you're just going to be wacky with it anyway. But other than that, you guys know the deal. You're putting yourself at a severe disadvantage, especially with the way the algorithm works and stuff like that. So there's little to no reason to use every single weapon if it's weaker or if it just doesn't kill as fast as, you know, some of the weapons that the competitive players are using, which is what usually happens. They use the best weapons, and that's usually it, unless something is so broken that they gentlemen agree it or they ban it. So but obviously this is not the case for casual play, but you guys know the deal, right? So this is basically the stuff that we're going to be getting at launch. Now, as I mentioned previously, now I know this says preseason, but this is pretty much what we've been said that is going to be at launch, and there's going to be a preseason, obviously for the first, I think, 6 weeks they said. But here's the thing, since originally, you know, they were supposed to release this game 2 months ago, and by the time the game does release, it's going to be a total of around 4 months, according to our predictions and the way things seem to be lined up, and hopefully we're right. You know, all this time obviously has been spent to polish the game and to, well, like basically squash the bugs that needed to be squashed. That way the game can operate at its optimal state. Mark Rubin went into detail about this. We've discussed it on the channel. So basically, here's the thing. Since they were not originally planning on having these delays and releasing next year, right? My big question, and I've tweeted at Mark Rubin about this, I asked him, I said, you know, since the game is going to be, you know, coming out later than you guys initially anticipated or wanted to release, are you guys planning on releasing additional content at launch because of the delay and because of all that extra time that you had, right? And I'm paraphrasing my own tweet here. But, and the thing is, obviously he didn't answer, he can't answer everything, but at the same time, it doesn't mean he's going to. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It doesn't mean that the answer is yes. It doesn't mean that the answer is no. But there is a possibility for XDefiant to release with additional content at launch than was originally planned, because they were originally planning to release earlier, but they've had all this extra time. And yes, even though their priority has been like on the party system and making sure that the server's on the Linux and stuff like that, and the game operates as smooth as it possibly can on launch and preparing for launch, something again, I'm not a game developer, but to me, this says that, well, you know, having something like a progression system, like the prestige system that we've been talking so much about, and a couple of other things here and there that will enhance the game and will support every single bit of content that the game does have, regardless of how much it is, I think that it would be really strategically advantageous for them to release like the progression system. So, and including preseason, or just skip the preseason altogether and just have a full on launch or something like that. They may have this sort of announcement thing going on at a launch trailer. That would be nice. Like, can you imagine if Mark Rubin says, like, this is what you guys are getting at launch, and it's going to be more than what you guys originally had, and then they release the trailer or something like that or whatever. So I think that would be really cool and advantageous for them to do that. So, but before we get to the very end of the video, though, I will discuss really quick the post-launch content. So, yeah, as my phone goes off. Now, we are going to have 4 seasons. Each one of them is going to last about 3 months, and we're going to have a new faction for every season. So we've got faction codename Ruby, Buzz, Orchard, and Horde. So, and then we're going to have 3 new weapons, 3 new maps, 90 tiers battle pass for every 3 months, right? And then on top of that, for the entirety of the post-launch, which will be like the entirety of all those seasons, we're going to be getting new arena and progression modes. We're going to be getting, as far as competitive goes, we're going to be getting, of course, ranked mode, private matches, caster cams. I think kill cams was another thing that they said that they were working on for launch. Hopefully we'll get that, because kill cams are actually very viable, not just from a gameplay standpoint, but also it allows the player to see if there's anything sus going on. And you guys know what I mean when I say that. And of course, player protection, ongoing work to keep the competition fair. Of course, the anti-cheat. This part right here is the most crucial and important one, and that's what I discussed in my previous video. And of course, you know, we've got comfort features, welcome list for beginners, and practice zones. So that is the year 1 roadmap, pretty much. So overall, when you're looking at it, we're going to be getting like 4 additional factions. So we're going to go from 5 to 9. We're going to go from 24 weapons to an additional 12, so that makes 36, which is really about right. And then 3 new maps every season. That's an additional 12. So we're gonna have 26 maps, which is quite a bit when you put everything together. And of course, 90 tiers battle pass. That's whatever. And then the biggest question is, you know, what kind of arena and progression modes are we gonna have? Rank modes and all that kind of stuff. Like, what's the prestige system going to be like, and all the details beyond that, you know, all the little tidbits and stuff like that. So all these things here actually support the content that is in the game by default, by the game's foundation, so to speak. However, with that being said, the most important thing is that the game obviously operates properly, but I think that people that care about that and don't care about all these little things that I mentioned here in this video, and these things here are secondary factors. You know, some people will prefer these things to be just as important, if not even more important. I personally don't think they're more important, because, you know, if the game doesn't operate properly, how are you going to enjoy all this other stuff? So for me, I would say at the very most, it's just as important. But personally, for me, in terms of what I want, I just want to play the game. And I know a lot of us are on that same boat, but at the same time, you can't ignore something as important as this, because even for players like us, right, that just want to play the game, we can and will get bored of it if there's not some seasoning. And what you're looking at here in this year 1 roadmap is seasoning when you think about it. So you've got to have some seasoning, or else it's going to be bland and you're not going to want to eat it anymore, so to speak. And here I go again with my food analogies. But anyway, that pretty much concludes this video, guys. I want you to let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'd love to hear your feedback. And again, as always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch and or listen, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.